He puts the teeth in terror. Leatherface. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 came out in 1990. And this one tells a story about a couple or two friends driving down the road from LA all the way to Florida. And when they get to Texas, the car breaks down and they bump into the crazy Sawyer family. And they have to fight to survive alongside Ken Foree playing a local survivalist who, like Kenny in South Park, refuses to die. This movie was directed by Jeff Burr, who would direct movies like Stepfather 2, which I like, Pumpkinhead 2, and Puppet Master 4 and 5. And this was written by David Schow, who was one of the people who tried to write Freddy vs. Jason, but he wrote a little bit for Nightmare on Elm Street 5, right around the same time that this movie came out. And he went on to write The Crow. And he also wrote Critters 3 and Critters 4. Not good movies. So, yeah, this one. I saw it for the first time a couple years ago, almost 2 years ago exactly, and remember thinking it was above average, like it wasn't bad. It was fine. I enjoyed it, but on rewatch, did I like it as much? Let's find out. So, let's just jump right into the negatives. What I don't like about this movie. Confusing, bad continuity. Don't like it. So this movie acknowledges 2 by having Stretch as a cameo and she doesn't say anything, but it also ignores 2 in the opening crawl and ignores it by having Leatherface alive still, not dead like he was at the end of part 2 when he got blown up by a grenade and chainsawed in his stomach. So the fact that he's alive tells me that 2 didn't happen, but Stretch has a cameo and they just waste her. Like, why do it? If you're gonna have Stretch in your movie, actually have her in your fucking movie. Why not give her some dialogue? Have her a part of the story. We get 2 actors from The New Blood, and Kane Hodder, who is Jason in that movie, he is the stunt coordinator for this film. We get 2 actors from that one, William Butler and the little girl who plays Tina in the opening, and both of them are not good actors. So we get a whole new Sawyer family. I guess everybody in this family is psycho and they're all cannibals. It's not just the 4 people in the first one. I guess there's just second cousins and aunts and uncles. Everyone in this family is doing the same thing. So we got, I guess, Leatherface's aunt and uncle, or his cousins are in this movie. They never call each other cousins, so I'm not sure what the relationship is, like who they are exactly to Leatherface, and who this little girl is. She's credited on Letterboxd as Leatherface's daughter, but in the movie it just says little girl, leaving it kind of open for you to interpret, like, is she just a little girl they kidnapped and they raised her to be psycho, or did Leatherface capture a girl, rape her, and then keep her around and then take the baby and kill the mom? Like, but according to Letterboxd, that's the daughter. But yeah, none of these new Sawyer people are interesting. They're all generic. Like, you just got the guy with the hook hand, the guy with the cloudy eyeball, the guy or the girl with the voice changer thing. What do you call it? People who like smoke too much, like the guy in South Park. I'm Ned. Like, that's who we get in this one, and like that's it. Like, there's just like one little thing about each of them that make them stand out from each other. Like, okay, that's the voice lady, that's the hook hand guy, that's the cloudy eyeball pervert, and they're just all generic and not interesting. They're not chop top like. They're not fun. There's way more antagonists in this movie than protagonists, which is weird. That's not common in horror movies to have so many fucking bad guys. In this movie, there's 3 good guys. The third good guy isn't introduced till like halfway through the movie, but there's like 6 fucking bad people, and it's just too much. It should have just been like Leatherface. Focus more on him, because he's the star of the show. It's his name on the title, so it should have just been him and more protagonists to up the body count. But that wouldn't have mattered, I guess, because in 1990, It wouldn't matter having all these kills because they would have all been butchered by the MPAA because it's 1990. The MPAA was slashing all these slashers, and we got K&B. K&B does the effects for this movie, and all their effects are completely neutered, just removed, censored, to the point where this movie, just like the first one, is like bloodless. There's no gore in this movie. I've taken shits bloodier than this film. It's ridiculous. And I don't like the new mask of Leatherface. Don't know what it is about it. It has like a big witchy nose. The face just looks all muddy, and I don't like it. Just don't. Maybe it's the hair. I just don't like it. They got the tie thing again. That's the common thing in all these movies. He always has to wear that tie, I've noticed. But yeah, so goreless, almost tensionless. They're trying to go for the scares again, unlike part two. Doesn't really succeed all that much. There's one good moment. And I don't like the addition of Rambo traps in the woods. Like, what? Like, they're trying something different, I guess, but for me, it just didn't work. It's just a little too over the top and ridiculous. I didn't like it. All these like big old spikes coming out and the nooses like grabbing them. And there's also a really odd, wasted subplot with this girl who has been living in the woods for a week after escaping the Sawyers. So she's established as someone who is good at hiding and knows her way around and can help out our main characters. But as soon as she's introduced and she's talking about how she survived a week in the woods, she immediately gets killed right after. Like, right after. So it's like, what did she do? Not much. Nothing at all. So that was just wasted. Like, that character should have served more of a purpose. Like, you bring in Denise from Just One of the Guys, so just saw her off camera. I also don't care for our new final girl, our new Sally. I don't even know her name. Michelle. Like, her character out of nowhere just gets, like, she becomes a cheesy one-liner machine by the third act. As soon as she escapes, she goes from 0 to 100, and she's doing, like, this big eye acting, and she's like, oh yeah? Come and get some! And then when she gets to the fucking swamp, the Norman Bates swamp in their backyard, she has a few one-liners back there, like, sorry, not sorry, and then when the alternate ending, like, she says something stupid, like, it just becomes a one-liner machine. Like, what the hell's going on? This is, I guess, the Freddy writer and David Schow coming out. It's just too much. I didn't like the new final girl. They don't really develop her character enough for me to give a shit. And the alternate ending of this movie makes no sense. It's the result of a test screening that I guess said, hey, your ending's not dumb enough and generic enough. We need to change it up and let's bring back characters from the dead without explaining how they survived a chainsaw to their fucking face. So let's get into my likes. I like the opening credits, how we see Leatherface making his new skin mask. It's kind of like the opening of Nightmare on Elm Street, making his iconic glove. In this one, he's stitching the face together and the skin looks good. The K&B effects look good there. So I thought that was cool. Like, oh, we're going to see him make the mask. Because before, we just see it already made and on his face. But now we get to see Leatherface doing his work, making the face on camera. So I was like, oh, this is a cool way to open up the movie. And another thing that's cool is his chainsaw. They upgrade it. They put one of the iconic quotes from part 2 on the chainsaw. The saw is family. So that's a little connection to part 2, even though this movie seems to be ignoring part 2 in a way. But the chainsaw looks great. It's like chrome and it's very shiny and looks amazing. So that's one of the only things that stands out in this movie is the chainsaw. I liked Ken Foree's character because it's Ken Foree. I like the actor. He'll always be Joe Grizzly, bitch. And his character in this one is almost like the Dennis Hopper of part 2. He's the one that's going to fight Leatherface, and he does a couple of times. There's a couple of decent fight sequences and some cool like heavy metal, like intense rock music playing over it. So those parts were enjoyable. And I like that they tried to make Leatherface scary again. In part 2, they made him so jokey and dumb and goofy that you couldn't take him seriously. He wasn't scary, but now Leatherface has a more scary on-screen presence in the film. Like, if this Leatherface was chasing me, I'd be scared because he's got a big hulking frame. They hire like a wrestler to play him, R.A. Mihailoff or whatever, who was in Hatchet 3 and got killed by Kane Hodder in that movie, who's the stunt coordinator, his stunt double in this movie. So he's just more intimidating in this one, and possibly even more intimidating looking than the original Leatherface. I like that in this movie to kind of increase the brutality of the original. They nail the hands of the final girl to the chair that she's in. They're recreating the dinner scene at the end of part one. And the only thing that's good about this one is the fact that they nailed her hands to the chair, which was more brutal than the original. And this movie has one good Leatherface scene and then one good suspense build-up that I thought was effective. It was a good like jump scare like the one in part two, and it's the first time we actually see Leatherface pop up when they're changing the car tire. I thought that was the only like creepy scene in the movie because you hear him approaching because of his leg brace. So I thought that was good, just hearing something strange, coming towards them closer and closer, and then boom, there he is holding the chainsaw. But I feel like they should have cut that shot of his leg brace out. Like they establish that he's on his way to them, so that kind of took away from it a bit. It would have been better if we didn't know he had a leg brace before the big jump scare. Like if he popped up and started chasing them, and then they cut to a shot of his leg saying, "Hey, that's what was making that noise." And you're like, "Oh, okay, so that's what that was." That would have been better. I appreciated the short runtime. I'm glad this movie went back to the 80-minute runtime of part one instead of the 100-minute runtime of part two, where it just kind of started to get exhausting and overstayed its welcome. This one is short and sweet, and the trailer for this movie, I think, is probably better than the movie. So final thoughts, this one to me is just a less insane, less gritty, goreless, rushed sequel that tries to be scary again with far less dark humor than its predecessors, but it just falls flat, runs out of gas by the climax, and this one needed less nods to the original, more cooler, newer ideas, less antagonists, more protagonists, more developed characters that I like, and more gore. So when it comes to Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, I'm just going to give this one 2 out of 5 stars. Alright, spoiler discussion. So we get the opening crawl again, and it seems to be ignoring part 2. It doesn't talk about it at all. Says that Sally died in 1977. Part 2 says she was catatonic, not dead. And W.E. Sawyer, I'm guessing that's the cook, was put on death row. He got killed in 1981. And so we get these cool opening credits that I already talked about, kind of like Nightmare on Elm Street, where he's making the mask. And we see Denise from Just One of the Guys, and he slides the door, so you get that homage to the original, and a cameo from Stretch as a reporter. In part 2, she says she wanted to be a reporter. Now she is one. So the movie's acknowledging 2, but also ignoring it, because Leatherface is dead in part 2, but now he's back. And so there's this whole mass grave with over 40, 50 bodies that they find, and they're taking pictures of the dead bodies, and kind of like the opening of part 1, except now we don't have that cool, iconic, eerie sound when the pictures are being taken. So that was missing. And so they hit an armadillo, so another nod to part 1, except this one was killed by our characters, not just lying dead on the road already. And she can't kill it. They hit it, but it's still clinging on to life, and she's going to put it out of its misery, but she can't do it. But then at the end of the movie, she can finally do it to Leatherface and hit him in the head with the rock. So that's her character arc that you saw coming a mile away. So then they get to the gas station, and we got the tropey, pervy clerk who has the cloudy eyeball, the ripped pants. He just looks like a freak, and he has that Norman Bates peephole in the back room. He's looking at her take a shit, probably. And so it's just generic stuff here. It's all generic, all been here, done that. All these homages to the first one, and they're doing nothing really new. So then they put on this big show, I guess, to get them leaving. He tells them about this secret road down the road. There's a secret road that he can take, and the guy starts shooting at their car, and he pretends shoots at the Viggo Mortensen, but he's not actually going to kill him, because we find out later on that they're related. So they're both Sawyers. So it was all just a big show to get them driving off in a hurry. And then the hook hand guy in his like monster truck drives after them, and they take that turn that the cowboy suggested earlier. Had they not taken that turn, this movie would have ended right there. They would have just kept driving in that direction, the right direction, and would have lived. But they took the cowboy's advice and went down the path to hell. But this dead coyote gets thrown onto their windshield, and they just swerve off the road, get a flat tire conveniently. And at first, William Butler's character thinks that the dead coyote caused the flat tire. Did I hear that correctly? That guy's a moron if he thinks a dead coyote hitting your windshield can cause a flat tire. But anyway, so then Leatherface pops up, but they kind of spoil that by showing his leg brace and that he's walking towards them. I feel like this scene could have worked even better had they just cut that shot out, just hear the squeaking approach them, like, what's that noise? And then boom, there he is, and then we see the leg brace. But this is the only intense, like, scary sequence in the movie. So then they're driving down the road, and I guess this was Tex, Viggo, that was him in the road, playing victim to get them to swerve, and they also almost hit Ken Foree, and they both conveniently just both their cars crash, flip upside down so they can't drive away. And then this guy lays down like 30 flares for some reason. It's like, it's an empty, abandoned road. No one goes down this road. It's not even on the fucking map, right? So all these flares are a little unnecessary, but he just likes the way they look. And I was expecting him to like throw it in his mouth like Friday the 13th Part 5. That would have been cool. But I like that Ken quickly realizes that something's wrong, and he gets his like M16 rifle. He does like a rifle out, and he's trying to put it all together. But then he falls down a hill, gets into a confrontation with Leatherface already, who I guess breaks the gun at that point, or he like knocks it out of his hand. And then Denise from Just One of the Guys shows up and does the whole like, "Hey, I'm over here, scumbag," just to like distract the killer in the moment so that he won't kill Ken on the ground. Like, he has him right there. All he had to do was be like, "Oh, you're over there? That's cool. All right, I'll just fucking saw Ken, and then now I'm after you." But instead, he just kicks him and is like, "I'll get to you later." It's like, no, just kill him. Like, "Oh, you're over there? Okay, I'll get you next." And as soon as this girl gives away her position and regroups with Ken, tells him how she's been surviving, when they separate, she gets killed right away. And it's just all off camera. She's getting gutted, I guess, with the saw. But the alternative death was that she was going to get sawed in half, but I guess the effect didn't work good, or the MPAA just said no. Then Michelle's friend gets knocked on the ground. He's in a bear trap, I think, and Leatherface shows up, starts to kill him, and we hear him dying off camera, but then later on he's still alive, and there's like barely any marks on his body. What the hell did Leatherface do to him? I like that the creepy doll that the little girl has is named Sally, the final girl in the original, and her room is decorated with bones and feathers, just like the original movie, which is the only room in the whole house that has any sort of resemblance to the original Sawyer house. The rest of the house just looks like any old home, so the set designs in this movie just weren't good. And this family also has a rotting grandpa. I guess every Sawyer family has a fucking rotting grandpa. Is this supposed to be the same one from part 2 or 1? Like, I don't know. Is this a different grandpa that's also rotting? Like, this one's clearly dead, right? Because when he gets shot later on, there's no blood coming out of him. It's just dust. So he's fucking dead, but it's just ridiculous. Like, again, another family that I guess it's just Sawyer tradition that nobody gets buried. We just keep each other in our houses forever. Then we get one of the biggest examples of censorship when the guy gets the sledgehammer hitting his face. It like cuts away, and when it cuts back, there's like no damage on his face. It looks normal again. Like, what? They built a dummy head, and then the sledgehammer hits it off camera. They cut back to it, and there's just like a little bit of blood trickling off the top of his head. Like, I was expecting his head to just get mushed in, but there's like no damage to it at all. So for some reason, this family stores dead people in a swamp like Norman Bates would. Why? I thought they would keep that meat in their freezers. They're cannibals, right? So why are they just wasting all the food by throwing it in the dirty ass swamp? And for some reason, Ken won't just shoot this bastard, Alfredo, by the swamp. He has him right in front of him. He has the gun, but instead he just knocks him out. He falls in the water, and he's like, one down. It's like, no, he's just going to get right back up. So were we supposed to believe he was dead just because he got knocked down and fell in water? I'm sure he's coming back, and he does. So why was he so confident? Like, yeah, I got him. He's done. He's not coming back. Like, he should have shot him. Wait for him to come back up. One of the only goofy moments in the movie involving Leatherface is when he's playing with that little baby toy where you spell things. It shows like a picture and you're supposed to spell what it is. It shows like a picture of a person and he spells food. I'm surprised he even knows how to spell food. So then we get this whole recreation of the dinner scene. Her hands are being nailed to the chair. Ken is outside. He sees that she's being tortured and they're drawing like a crosshair on her face. And, Leatherface, he gets that new chainsaw and he's about to like use her face as target practice with his chainsaw that he just got. Ken sees all this and then takes his gun and starts shooting the people that are less of a threat than the people who would actually, you would actually want to shoot first. Like, he shoots Grandpa, who's already fucking dead. He shoots the woman with the voice thing in the wheelchair, shoots the fingers off of the one guy who I guess is dead after that. I don't remember him dying, but I guess that killed him. And that effect, when the fingers came off, it looked worse than the fingers and the burning. It was awful. And then he shoots his ear off, and that effect looked okay, but really? You didn't shoot the big motherfucker with the chainsaw? Like, I think he shoots that. He misses. He hits the chainsaw out of his hand. So it's like the biggest guy in the room, you miss. You hit the chainsaw, but you managed to hit fingers and ears. Like, this guy's a terrible shot. He's a survivalist. He's been out in the woods his whole life training to survive and know how to work guns, and this is his aim. He's fucking terrible. So then Leatherface gets in the car, and he's driving for the first time, we see, and runs over Ken, but there's so much of a gap because it's like a monster truck. There's so much space underneath it that all that Ken had to do was just fall back, and that's what he does. And Leatherface gets out of the car, grabs his chainsaw, and starts running after the final girl, thinking that he successfully killed Ken, running him over. Like, did you feel something? Did you feel that bump? Like, no, you did not run him over. That scene made no sense. I was like, he would be checking underneath the car to look at the body, see if he actually did kill him, and like just fucking get him. But he's like, oh, I think I got him. So Ken, he just gets right back up and he starts fighting Tex and gets gasoline all over him. And he uses that lighter that Denise gave him earlier. You knew that was coming back, like in Halloween 2. The cop gives Loomis the lighter. Here, you're going to need it later. And so he throws it, lights his ass on fire. But the line that cracks me up is when he's like, why are you doing this? And Tex is like, we're hungry. And his reply back is like, try pizza. Haven't you heard of pizza? So that's the one good line from this movie. So then Michelle, she's being chased through the woods. She gets in this trap. It pulls her to the swamp. She had a knife on her, I guess, so she cuts herself loose. And then Ken comes to save the day again and gets in a fight with Leatherface in the swamp. The chainsaw's going off somehow. Don't you have to like push the thing down to get it going? But it's just constantly going. And she's just watching the whole fight. She's just off to the side like a cheerleader going, yeah, Ken, kick his ass. Like, how about you fucking go? Or step in, grab the chainsaw while they're fighting. But instead, she just sits there being a cheerleader. And Ken gets his head sawed. Like, the saw goes up against his head like this and starts going off. We see him actually die. He's dead. But he comes back in the alternate ending, which is this movie's true ending. They shot this alternate ending, and now we're stuck with it as the definitive ending to this film, and it makes no fucking sense. Like, he got sawed in the head, and now he's alive again, and they just have, like, a little wound, like a little bit of blood on his head, like, oh, it's just a flesh wound. It's like, no, your brains were being sent out of your skull. You're fucking dead. But when she's, like, hitting him in the head with that rock, she's like, sorry, not sorry. When did that become an expression, I wonder? Was it way before this, or was this the first movie to say that? Because I always heard that expression growing up, sorry, not sorry. Yeah, I guess it started here, maybe. Who knows? I doubt it. But Yeah, and then we get the whole reshot ending here. He just pulls up Ken. He's like, "Hey, I'm alive!" And she should have been like, "Oh my god, I thought they killed you, Kenny, because he's fucking Kenny. He won't die. He just has a little scrape on his head, just a little flesh wound. Won't kill him." And then he gets knocked out, like you think he's gonna die again. Like, oh my gosh, are they gonna kill him for the 6th time? And then she just shoots Alfredo after a cheesy one-liner. And then they drive off, and then we see Leatherface is still alive with his chainsaw. The end. Cheesy, generic ending that doesn't make any fucking sense. How is Ken alive? It's so dumb. So those are my thoughts on Leatherface. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. What are your thoughts on this movie? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like what you've seen here, you can hit this like button and become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And remember, it's all an opinion. You don't need to get upset about it.